One more thing. Luka Doncic will Slovenia back into the Olympic qualifying tournament with a win over New Zealand. How did they get it done, and what did Luka look like? We'll talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Mavs. One more thing.
I'm here because I have to be.
Dallas is going to get a seat at the table.
That's it. It's me versus the machine. Don't let his lightness take away from his quickness.
You can rest later. You're young.
I never recovered here.
Wait. One more thing.
Yeah. Let's go. Welcome. You're still locked on to the Dallas Mavericks and Slovenia. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and your best friend covering the Mavs for Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply today. Slovenia gets a win against New Zealand. They stay alive. They win by over 10, and so they'll stay alive in the Olympic qualifying tournament, and your tears can go in the garbage. All the Mavs fans that didn't want Slovenia to win this game. We'll talk about some key things, how they got the win. We'll talk about what it means for them, how Luka got a triple-double and all that kind of stuff. We'll break all that down and talk about that. We'll do this in the bonus episode. We call it the One More Thing here on Locked On Mavs. It's a daily Dallas Mavericks podcast, but in the offseason, when Luka's playing for another country, we'll cover him. Luka Doncic in Slovenia, 104-78. They get the win against New Zealand after New Zealand upset Croatia. That was kind of a surprising thing from the other day. Luka, 36 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists. Looks not great, but a vintage Luka type performance and type game, especially an injured Luka performance. The thing about this game is that Slovenia beats New Zealand. They needed to win by at least 10 in order to stay alive in the Olympic qualifying, to maybe potentially stay in this to make the Olympics and to play in Paris. So they needed to win by 10 in order to just stay alive in their group. You've got different groups. Slovenia is in this group with Croatia, with New Zealand, and then the other side of their group is Greece. On the other side of their group is Greece, Egypt, and the Dominican Republic. And so now, Slovenia could, if they had won by 29 in this game, they could have won their group and then they could have avoided Greece. But since they didn't win by 29, they got real close. We'll talk about that. But they got real close. They finished second in their group and they'll advance to the semifinals, where they're probably going to play Greece. I think it's like 99% sure, as I'm recording this, that they are going to play Greece in the next round, and that's going to be a really tall order for them. This one, though, they get the win, huge win, came out of the gate swinging in this one. New Zealand was on a second night of a back-to-back. That really hurt them late in this game. You could really tell they were really struggling later in this game. But Slovenia was up by 25-26 with they're up by, I'm sorry. Slovenia was up by 27 with a chance left. They had a possession left. And Gregor, Horvat, and Luka both got three-point attempts. Luka had a great look in the corner. Horvat had a great shot from the right wing in order to get a three. And if they made that three, then they would have won that group. They would have avoided Greece, and that would have been a really good thing for Slovenia. Instead, they don't. They're probably going to play Greece in the semifinals, and that'll be on Saturday. And so we'll see what happens with that one. We'll cover that here. I'll have the breakdown of the game and all that. But this Slovenia team looked completely different than they did against Croatia. They looked like they came out with purpose. They looked like they came out with, a desperation in order to win this game, because they did. They needed to win this game just to stay alive. Came out of the gate swinging. They were flying around early. Went up 14-2. An incredible run to start the game. New Zealand's offense just didn't look like they had anything going. Their legs looked super dead early on in this one. And so I think that you look at this start and you're like, all right, great. Slovenia's coming out really great, flying around on defense, not letting New Zealand get into anything that they wanted to do, not letting them get three-point shots off really. And Slovenia didn't really shoot the three ball well early. In this game. But they were flying around. They were getting an early lead. They were up 27-9 at the end of the first quarter, and that was a massive thing for them. They needed to keep that 10-point lead. And then the second quarter, all of a sudden it starts falling apart. Starts completely falling apart. New Zealand goes on a 16-9 stretch to close the gap. It was a an 11-point game at that point, and you're like, oh man, what is going on? And then with 18 seconds left in the second quarter, it was only a 5-point game. New Zealand had closed the gap all the way from, 18, 19 points to 5 points at the end of the second quarter. And you're really thinking, oh man, does Slovenia just not have it? Because this team has struggled. They really struggled to score against Croatia. They struggled to defend against the size of Croatia, but New Zealand didn't have that same kind of size. You weren't dealing with the Zubac's. You weren't dealing with a Dario Saric and a Mario Hezonja that are big wings. You just didn't have that size. New Zealand doesn't have any NBA players on it. They do have Corey Webster, who used to play for the Mavs Summer League team back in 2017. I kept seeing him, and I was like, man, I remember him from somewhere. And that's where is that he played for the Mavs Summer League team back in 2017. But they don't have any NBA players. They don't have a ton of size on the team. They have Shea Ili, who played a great game. He had 28 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists for him, and was just dealing at certain times in this game, getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line, and all that. But New Zealand closes the gap, and it was a great start. Luka was struggling to hit shots. He had 17 points at halftime, 5 of 12 from the field, and he had made Slovenia's only 3-point shot. They were 1 of 9 from 3 at halftime. And this Slovenia team has to hit threes in order to find their full potential. They just haven't found their rhythm at all. And there's nobody that's really stepped up as like a good 3-point shooter for them. You finish this game and Luka hits 3 of 12, which is not great for them. And then Preplovic, who is the one that's got to step up. He's their smaller guard off the bench, microwave scorer type guy. He's the other guy that's got to get going. And he was 2 of 7 in this game. Gregor Horvat hit a 3. You got another 3 from Cerveknik, and then nobody else hit a 3. Vlatko Čančar is hurting them right now. He's the only other guy that has been an NBA player. I guess Zoran Dragic has been an NBA player, but Čančar was an NBA player last year, and he is just brutal in this game and the game before. He was 0 for 7 from the field, missed all 4 of his threes, only 1 rebound, no assists, like nothing really else. I mean, his stat sheet was pretty empty. It was almost a Tony Snell, but he didn't even score 1 point. Zoran Dragic didn't give him anything either. In this one, 0 for 4 from the field. So there's your 2 starting wings. You got absolutely nothing from them. But you got good stuff from Horvat off the bench. Preplovic, 14 points, 8 assists for him. He had some good playmaking moments. And the key for Slovenia, we talked about the size, that they just didn't have to deal with the size the same that Croatia had. But Josh Nebo was able to do a ton of stuff in this game. Josh Nebo is the 6'9 center who replaced Mike Tobey. I've seen a couple people ask about Mike Tobey. He's not on the team anymore. You get one naturalized player, like somebody that you can bring over and that can become part of your team and naturalize them to join, a different country. Josh Nebo is that guy. He had 20 points, 12 boards in this game, 10 of 16 from the field, just absolutely dealing in the post, getting anything down low, getting good position, running out in transition. And anytime that they switched, it wasn't really an advantage for New Zealand. Luka was getting a ton of switches early in this game. New Zealand was just giving up the switch, and they're like, okay. Luka said, I'll just take your 6'9 center guy off the dribble, and he can't hang with me in the open court in the same way that a mobile type center could. And so he's dealing in his way. And then you've got Josh Nebo, who's getting position, and he's scoring against some of the smaller guys for New Zealand. He's getting out in transition. Preplovic is hitting him on alley-oops. Luka's hitting him on alley-oops. And it was just a recipe for them to really build a big lead in this one. Then you get into the second half. Luka, he still doesn't look great. I know that people are going to say, when he's winning, he doesn't look like he's injured. When he's losing, it looks like he's hurt all the time. Yes, there is definitely some of that. Luka is dramatic. We know this. But at 8:30 in the third quarter, he landed off of a rebound. He was holding his back. He was walking up the court. He had the ball, but he was kind of holding his back. And, man, it just does not look very good for Luka. So to muster a game like this, where Luka finishes with 36 points, 11 boards, 10 assists, plays 35 minutes, goes 15 of 18 from the free throw line, a stat line that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander would be proud of. An incredible effort to get his country to stay alive in this Olympic qualifying tournament. Massive. Slovenia, they lost that second quarter. That was a brutal one. They lost 30-19, but they end up winning the third quarter 31-18. An incredible turnaround for them, a good response. And then they won that fourth quarter 27-21. They got 2 shots at the end, like I said, in order to get it to 29, and that would have been absolutely great for them. Man, the refs in this game were calling Not a lot. They were letting a lot of contact go. They were letting a lot of physicality go. But if you fouled between the 3-point line and the free throw line, they would call everything. It was this weird spot where, like, okay, if you get in this zone and somebody touches you, you can't. But if you get to the rim and you try and finish and somebody fouls you, it doesn't matter. It was very a weird thing that they were calling. But incredible effort by Slovenia. Love to see it. Love to see what they're doing now. They stay alive. They're going to play against Greece most likely. So we'll see what happens then. We'll follow that. I'll cover that on Saturday when that game happens. And we'll just keep covering Slovenia until they're out of this. But if they're facing off against Greece and Giannis, they have no one to stay with Giannis. Josh Nebo is going to have to defend out in space. He's going to have to defend Giannis in the post. Just no one else on this team that's going to be able to hang with Giannis. And I'm worried about their rebounding ability against a team like Greece. So we'll see what happens in that. That's Slovenia against New Zealand. And we'll be back with more coming up this week. We'll talk about the Mavs a little bit more. We'll do some more on Slovenia. Guys, thanks for hanging out with me on Locked On Mavs.
Can you describe